Here I have a Leslie Vibratone 31H organ speaker. Now this speaker I bought out of I guess a factory or warehouse. I know that it had sat in a barn for a long time, and it is in very rough condition. The cabinet doesn't look too good. It's all there, but it's in very rough condition. I've had the back of the bass cavity off, and the bass speaker, if I flexed it by hand, I heard it rubbing on one side of the voice coil. That's not the best of issues, but we'll see how bad it rattles when I play. When I finally get the amplifier back in. Now, the interesting thing is trying to determine the history of this device. I'm certain that a rock and roller had owned it for a while, because the horns up here, you'll notice that on both sides, the baffles, there's supposed to be plastic baffles in there, but they're broken out. And one side of this horn is just a dummy, just to balance it out. It only speaks, the treble only speaks through one horn. This particular one, in fact. And inside, stuff down inside from the factory, is a piece of cotton. And that cotton, of course, is to kind of subdue the highs. So with the baffles removed and the cotton pulled out of there, this thing literally screams, or it will scream. And that's what certain heavy-duty rock and roll organists really like, is they like it to scream. The amplifier, when I pulled it out, it was pretty beat up, and it was definitely in need of repair. There were solder connections that broke. It needed everything, including capacitors. But I bought this as is, and this is what I have to work with. So in the next video, I'm going to put it together, and in the next video I'm going to post Stomping at the Savoy. I'm going to play my Model A organ through this Leslie, and you can hear how it screams. It doesn't sound too bad, actually, and of course the Model A, Hammond Model A from 1936 is a really bright instrument. But in the next video, Stomping at the Savoy, I'm going to play it. Now here is the amplifier for the 31H Leslie. Now here we have 4 6L6 tubes, and you'll notice that they don't match. This is how I got it. I tested the tubes, and the tubes are all good, but I would rather that they were all 4 the exact same make of tube. This will work, of course, but I'd be more satisfied if they were 4 matching tubes. Here are the 2 5U4 rectifiers. When I got this amplifier, there was a Svetlana tube in one of these sockets, and I replaced it with a new, or an old but good tube from my stock. I replaced it with this tube here. I think it worked much better than the Svetlana tube was. I don't think that tube was any good. I tested it, and I was really unsure on the test. But this is the amplifier. I repaired it. I don't want to use the term that I rebuilt it, because if I rebuilt it, it would have had a lot more done to it than you're going to see here. Here is the underside of the 31H amplifier. As you can see, I've replaced all of the capacitors with new capacitors. Here are the electrolytics, which replace the plug-in cans. There had been a mouse nest, and they ate away some of the insulation, which I've replaced with wiring. All in all, it was a mess. You'll notice down here is a porcelain tube socket. The original phenolic tube socket was just junk. In fact, the reason I said I didn't restore this amp, that if I did restore this amp, all of this wiring would be replaced, and the tube sockets would be replaced with brand new porcelain sockets. As it is, I didn't do that, but if or I should say when I rebuild one of these or restore one of these, it's definitely going to be completely rebuilt. I'm going to replace all of the tube sockets in it and the wiring as well. Now I put the amplifier back in the cabinet, and I'm going to very soon play some music on this thing. One thing that's very interesting, here is the switch on the side of the cabinet that turns on and off the rotors. And the switch plugs into this outlet here, and the two motors through this three-way connector are plugged into one outlet on this side of the amp, but there's a second outlet that you can see behind here. And what happens is when this cabinet gets installed on a Leslie, they in the push-pull signal out, there's a 1-to-1 isolation transformer that's put in, and through the center tap of that isolation transformer, B plus is sent back through the signal leads DC, which is picked up by this tube, and it in turns turns on and off a relay that turns. So if this were plugged into the outlet behind that you can see, these rotors could be turned on and off from the console with a switch. In this case, I don't have that installed, so I've got it plugged in the forward outlet, and it's the rotors strictly turn on and off with this switch on the side. But that's just something interesting I wanted to point out. So the next video, Stomping at the Savoy, we're going to play this thing.